Hello, homeschool colleagues. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm so excited to share with you some of the things that I've learned over the years as a homeschool mom of 20 plus years. I live in Hawaii and I have two kids with my husband. We've been married for 33 years. It's so exciting. But I knew from the very beginning that I wanted to homeschool my children. So it just so happened that I got a little bit of a head start out of high school. I went straight to college to become a teacher. And then when my kids were toddlers, I got my master's in education. I was so eager and so excited. But I really want to share with you in this course some of the core things that I learned while I was in graduate school and in college. Because, of course, as a trained teacher, I learned a lot about teaching methods and how to teach different subjects. So, those are the things that I want to share with you, but this will also be coupled with my 20 plus years of teaching experience, not just homeschooling my own kids, but also homeschooling other people's kids. And I do have a few years of teaching in the public school and in private school. So let's get started. All right, I'm going to bring up the course handbook and you'll be able to follow along with me. This is going to be a very unique course where number one, you're a Christian. Number two, you want Bible-based curriculum. You want your kids to have a solid foundation in biblical understanding so that they can grow up and learn how to walk with God. Isn't that one of the most important things that we want to teach our children is how to walk with God? But not just that. We don't want our kids just to walk with God as if that's not enough, but it really is. But we also want to give them a solid foundation in academics. We want them to be able to read well, and we want them to be able to think logically and clearly and not be swayed by the world's ways or the principles of this world. And so that's what my course is inspired by you. I'm inspired to help you do all of those things because I did all of those things. My kids are young adults, they're thriving, they're independent, but not only that, they do walk with God and they're going to walk with God for the rest of their lives. And I have all confidence, of course, I'm biased, that they will continue in that. So I'm going to get started with basic Christian homeschooling because there's a lot of courses out there that talk about how to homeschool, how to set up your classroom, how to go through curriculum, what type of homeschooling mom are you, those types of things. But this course is not that. This is going to go a little bit deeper. But I do want to include some of the things that you're going to need to understand before I get into the nitty-gritty of biblical principles. So, there's four things I want to mention in this particular lesson, and that is time, space, the Christian view of the child, and the family's mission and vision. So let's get started. Time is undervalued, I believe, in the homeschooling circles because there is a big movement for unschooling, which I'm not against. I think that unschooling can be valuable in the right circumstances, but that doesn't take away from the fact that time is limited and it's precious. We can squander it or we can save it. We can waste it or we can redeem it. Ephesians 5:16, as you might already know, says to redeem the time because the days are evil. And then if you've been a mom for any length of time, you know that the kids grow fast. And my kids are already grown and gone, and it just goes by so fast. You prepare, like when you're a young person, you prepare to get married and have children, especially if you're a female, and you're so excited to start the family. You start your family, and then poof, it's over. You're still in your 40s or your 50s, perhaps, and your kids are grown and gone. And it happens so fast. And so I wanted to just mention here a little bit about time and how important that is as a homeschool mom, because you could be raising your kids in your home maybe for 18 or 20 years, but you're only homeschooling or giving them a formal education, shall we say, For 12 years, maybe 13, there have been studies that say that when a Christian child moves out of their Christian home and goes to college, that there is a high probability, I think it's 85% or something like that they will not follow God in their later years. So we want to avoid that. We want to prepare our kids to face the world. And so we have a small amount of time, but we also have the influence of the world that can be so strong. And we know that the world and the devil is out there seeking whom he may devour. He is vying for the attention of our children. But God wants us to use our time wisely. If we take advantage of every second that we have with our children, then we're doing our job. They are with us for such a short time. So that's my encouragement to you. Number one is to take advantage of the 12 or 13 years that you have with your child and make the most of it. Now, I'm not saying you should, read books and write essays all day long, even though that's a great activity, but that's not something you do all day long. It's something that you do every day or every other day. It's something that's consistent. And that's really the principle behind the idea of taking advantage of the time that you have with your children. The principle is that you want to be consistent. There should be some predictability in the learning experience. So all that to say, the task to do for this would be to make a homeschool schedule. It's a great way to redeem the time. Make a schedule that fits the needs of your family. Don't make a schedule that somebody else made. When I first started homeschooling, I was the worst at that. I didn't like schedules at all. I was the most spontaneous person you ever met, and that might be you. You might actually hate the word schedules, and I can understand completely. But when I started homeschooling, my husband thought it would be a great idea and thought that our kids really needed a schedule. So I sat down and I created a chart with boxes and time frames for every subject and every week, every year. Now, you would think that I would have followed that just because I created it, but of course not. Don't be silly. That's not what all of us do. Well, some of us who are a little more geared toward that might follow it, but the point of the schedule is a guideline. It's a guideline. When I first started homeschooling, I followed it maybe 5% of the time, but then over time, I got better and better. Now, I wasn't perfect by the time we ended our homeschooling career, well, the career that I had with my children, but I did get better, and I think it benefited them in the end because the result that I saw in their life was very orderly and systematic, and that brought a lot of joy to my heart. So, anyway, with the idea that time is precious and you want to take advantage of that time and be consistent with the things that you do, then a schedule is a great way to start. So please try it out. Even if you don't follow it, it's going to benefit you in the long run. All right, let's move on to space. Now, this is also important because there's a lot of new homeschool moms out there, and they just want to fly by the seat of their pants. They're not really preparing too much. They might buy some curriculum, but they underestimate the idea that a child who has a space of their very own is going to thrive and take ownership and responsibility for their education more than the ones that don't have a space. Now, you might have a child that likes things here, there, and everywhere, and that's okay. But there should be a space where they can put their books and their pencils away, and a space where they can get their books out and sit down or have a place where they are working on their schoolwork. So, in a homeschool environment, creating space isn't just about the furniture and where it goes, it's about a mindset. Space is about a mindset. So, don't get too hyper crazy about where the furniture is. Where's the bookshelves? Where's the whiteboard? Think about it as a mindset. When children have a spot that's theirs for learning, no matter how small, it communicates to them that their education is valued and it is worth preparing for. Education should be valued. It gives the child space to think and to create and to manage their own materials, building both responsibility and a sense of ownership. A designated space adds structure to the freedom of homeschooling. Now, you might think that's an oxymoron phrase, but I love the fact that we can have structure, but with freedom, because that's how God is with us. He gives us parameters, but at the same time, He allows us to develop who we are in Him. So, a designated space adds structure to the freedom of homeschooling and quietly shapes your child's identity as a learner. You want your child to have or find to create an identity for themselves as a learner. You want them to see themselves as a learner and you want them to love it. So that space for thinking and creating and managing that space is so important in homeschooling. So make room for learning. It's one of the simplest ways to elevate your homeschool. The third thing I want to talk about is the Christian view of the child. Children are dependent and immature by nature. They aren't born completely independent. We teach them to be independent and we teach them to be mature. So they're constantly growing physically, emotionally, intellectually, socially. Even the Bible talks about Jesus growing in that way. But God put inside of every child and every one of us the need to fulfill our God-given purpose, because we each have a God-given purpose. So that's what's going on in the child, is they're looking for their God-given purpose. Intentional guidance through instruction and discipline, children will develop good habits, character, and perseverance. These are some of the most important qualities a child could learn. Though they are young, they have great potential. They are not just born dependent and immature, but they are born precious. The Bible says that they are gifts from God, and they deserve love and care in order to grow. They thrive in a strong, respectful relationship with those around them. More than just our responsibility, they are our legacy. They are capable, valuable individuals who will carry forward what we teach and model for them. And that's so important for us to understand, that we are modeling for them how to behave and how to live. So if we see our children as beings that are growing into their potential, then we can be more intentional in what we do. They are a gift, as I said. They are precious. They don't need to conform. Let me say that again. They don't need to conform and just do whatever you tell them. They need to prosper. So set them up for success. Show them the way. Teach them how to do it. Model it for them. Practice it. That's how you set kids up for success, because they don't know these things unless we teach them. But if by chance they do fail, failure on their part is a sign that an adjustment is needed by the parent's instruction. So this doesn't just apply to parenting, but it applies to teaching our children how to learn. When they are failing, it's a sign for us to do something different. So I want us to remember that. We'll be guiding our kids to do this, that, and the other thing for homeschooling. But if they fail, it means they haven't been equipped enough to be able to succeed. So our goal is to look for how can we set them up for success. That's the Christian view of the child, because all children are going to fail, and we're the ones who can help. God gave us the power and authority to be able to equip them and teach them. That is exciting. And that leads me to my last point, the family's mission and vision. Creating a mission and a vision for your homeschool gives you a clear sense of direction and purpose. It outlines what your values and goals are. Or when you have doubt, when you're overwhelmed or exhausted, which you will inevitably be feeling, your mission and vision ground you in why you started homeschooling and what truly matters. Because there's going to be a lot of things going on in your homeschool, and you might not know what you need to focus on. And so your mission and your vision is going to guide you and remind you of what really matters. Because ultimately, you can be doing everything right. You could be teaching and using all of the teaching strategies, using biblical principles, but there's going to be times when nothing's working. And that's okay. That's natural. That's part of humanity. So, what you're going to do at that time is go back to your mission and vision and reset yourself to what's most important. So, take the time to write down what your mission and vision is and set meaningful goals for your children's growth and learning. Even on the hardest days, you'll be able to stand strong. So now what I want to show you is a resource called Family Goals Packet, and I created this for you, which is part of the course. And when you open it up, you're going to find on the second page a dream board. This is where you're going to write why you want to homeschool. What is your dream homeschool schedule? Don't even base it off the world. Don't base it off public school. Pick your own schedule, but remember, redeem your time. Don't waste it. Use it to its utmost potential. You're also going to write down what is the most valuable in terms of how you want your kids to treat you as a homeschool parent. This is such an important question because if your kids are not treating you properly, that's the first thing of homeschooling is that you and your child can relate to one another on a respectful way. I don't tolerate whining or complaining. As soon as children start whining or complaining, you could redirect them and teach them the appropriate way to behave. And even if I was speaking disrespectfully to my child, I would say, okay, let me replay that. And then I would say it again. All right, so that's a whole nother topic that I would love to talk about, but let's move on. The next question is, what academic goals do you have for your children? Do you want them to read an X number of books? Do you want them to be able to go to calculus by the time they go to high school? You know, these kinds of things. Just whatever comes to mind as far as academic goals for that particular year or even for the lifetime that you're with your child. It doesn't matter. Write something down here for what you have. The next question is, what three character qualities do you want your kids to develop the most? That is such an important question because you're going to use that every day. You're going to call your kids up to those character qualities. All right, so on the subsequent page, we have the space where you can write down your vision and your mission. So the previous page is where you're brainstorming all these ideas. And the next page is where you're going to articulate exactly what your vision and mission is. Make it sound professional. Get the help you need. If you need help from someone else, of course, hopefully your spouse is helping you with this, but you're going to answer what kind of student do you want to produce in your child? That's the vision of what your homeschool purpose is. What kind of student do you want to produce? And be as descriptive as you'd like. Now, the second box on the left is your mission. How will you accomplish this? Will you accomplish this through certain activities or certain motto or anything of the like? whatever comes to mind. And again, you can even research online mission statements for homeschools or something like that to see what else is being written out there. Let's move to the box where it says values. What are the most important ways to accomplish this? So what kinds of values do you have? Whatever that might be, you're going to write that in this box. And at the bottom, you have goals. What routines do you hope to establish this year? Whatever comes to mind, but I did want to show you an example of all this. But first, let's get to our third page. This is just a brainstorm of yearly activities that you can do in reading, science, social activities, or certain skills or classes. All right, so there's 3 worksheets here for you to do for your homework. And I have a sample one here for you that you can read. This is what I wrote down for my homeschool. So it's just a sample. And there's my mission and vision. I'll read my vision to you. Arrows Academy, which is what we called our homeschool, has a vision to raise up children who reason with the mind of Christ, walk in the character of Christ, and fulfill the commission of Christ. Yes, I did get a little illiterate. Our children will be able to apply God's word to any area of knowledge, living, and personal life. Exemplify the fruits of the Spirit and develop habits of industry. That means they're hardworking, but they're also productive doing something. Service, which means they have a heart for other people. And then outreach. That means they go out of their way to help others. All right, so that is the vision for my homeschool, and then you'll be able to read the rest of it here. And some ideas for what we did for activities and events. All right, that's it. I can't wait to get into understanding biblical principles. All right, until next time, I'll see you there. Bye.